Today's lesson is on multiplying and dividing while solving equations. So as you look at the example number 1 right here, your focus is on k, the variable. So you're going to draw your line and you're going to circle the variable k. The opposite of dividing by -5 would be to multiply by -5. So we are going to multiply the right side by -5 over 1, and I'm putting it over 1 because k over -5 is a fraction. And whenever you multiply a fraction by something, you want to make sure it's multiplied to another fraction. What we do to one side, we have to do to the other side. However, on the other side, I'm just multiplying by -5. I'm not multiplying by -5 over 1 because -4 is not a fraction. And so on the left, a negative times a negative is a positive. 5 times 4 is 20 equals, and on the right, the -5's cancel and you're left with just a k. So k is equal to 20. So let's check that. Write the original equation, -4 equals, and instead of k, we're putting in the value we just got above, 20, divided by -5. So the only side of the check that we need to work is the right side. The left side doesn't have anything to do, so we've got -4 equals. A positive times a negative is a negative, and then 20 divided by 5 is indeed 4, so it checks. Look at example 2. This time we have a decimal. Don't let the decimal bother you. Our focus is over here where the variable is. So you're going to draw your line, circle your variable, that's where your focus is. M is being divided by 3, so to undo that, we are going to multiply by 3, and I'm going to put 3 over 1, and they're going to multiply over here, the right side, by 3 as well. On the left, the 3's cancel, you're left with just an m. And on the right, 1.5 times 3 is 4.5. Let's check it. So instead of m, we're going to put in a 4.5. We're going to divide that by 3 and see if that gives us 1.5. The only side of the check that needs to be worked is the left side. 4.5 divided by 3 is indeed 1.5. So 1.5 equals 1.5, and it checks. So then these are for you to do on your own. So I'm not going to talk as I go through it. I'm just going to do the problem so you can pause the video. At this point, do number 1 and then press play and look at the solution. Then pause it again before you do number 2 and so forth. On number 3, I am going to chit-chat about number 3 a little bit. S is not being divided by anything, it's being multiplied by 2/3. However, when the coefficient, which is the 2/3, is a fraction, the easiest way to solve for that is to multiply by the reciprocal of that fraction. Remember, the reciprocal means to flip-flop it. So the reciprocal of 2/3 is 3/2. So if I multiply the left side by 3/2, I would have to multiply the right side by 3/2, and I'm going to put the -6 over 1 because 3/2 is a fraction. So there's my focus. On the left side, the 3's and the 2's cancel, and you're left with just an s equals. And on the right side, the 2 and the 6 have a 2 in common. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. Then a negative times a positive is a negative, and 3 times 3 is 9. So we've got negative 9. And then I'm going to check. So the 3 and the 9 have a common divisor of 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. Negative 9 divided by 3 is negative 3. 2 times negative 3 is indeed negative 6. Next page. This time we're going to solve equations by using division. The equations look a little different. For once, there's a number in front of the variable. So this number that's in front of the variable is called a coefficient. This entire term is your variable term. And we do have it on one side by itself. But instead of just circling the x, I'm going to circle that whole variable term. Because we do want the whole variable term on one side by itself. And that's our first goal. And then our next goal is to solve for x. So if you've got 7 sandwiched next to x, it implies that it is 7 times x. So to undo 7 times x, we need to divide by 7. To show division by 7, we're going to use a fraction bar. You have to use a fraction bar. You're no longer allowed to use a division symbol. So what you do to one side, you must do to the other. The 7's on the left cancel, and you have x equals 56 divided by 7 is 8. Then we're going to check. You must use substitution parentheses in place of the x. We're going to put 8. So 7 times 8 is equal to 56. Finish that check. 7 times 8 is 56. 56 equals 56. Check. Example 2. This time your w is on the right, your variable's on the right, and your coefficient's negative. So we have negative 2 times w. To undo that, we need to divide the left side by negative 2 and the right side by negative 2. So here's our brick wall, and remember, we are concentrating on that side of the equation because that's where your variable is. So on the right side, the negative 2's cancel, and you're left with a w. On the left side, 2 does not go into 13 evenly, so please do not write negative 6.5. There is no decimal in the original problem, so we don't want the decimal as an answer. You want to take this improper fraction and make sure it's fully reduced. Are there any numbers that both 13 and 2 are both divisible by? No. So in that case, you're going to leave it as is, negative 13 over 2. So let's check it. So we've got 13 equals negative 2. Because my w is a fraction, I'm going to put 2 over 1 and multiply it by negative 13 over 2. So on the right hand side, the 2's cancel, but the negative doesn't. So the 2's here cancel, but the negative doesn't. So on the left, I've got a 13 equals, and on the right, a negative times a negative is a positive. 1 times 13 is 13. So it does check. All right, the last 3 problems you are to do on your own. So again, start with number 1, pause the video, do your problem, and then press play and look at the solution, and do that for all the rest of these 3. So I'm not going to say anything as I solve them. And that's the end of the lesson. Good luck.